In the fading days of the Third Age, as the last ships departed for the undying lands and the era of men dawned, one figure's absence lingers through the shadows of history like an unanswered riddle. Radagast the Brown, one of the mighty Istari sent by the Valar themselves, simply vanished, leaving behind questions that grow darker with each passing age. Some might dismiss his disappearance as mere retirement, a gentle wizard retreating into his beloved wilderness. But in Tolkien's world, such simple explanations often mask deeper, more troubling truths. For how could one of the 5 most powerful beings in Middle-earth simply fade away, forgotten by both history and the very powers that sent him? Consider this. While Gandalf ascended triumphantly to the undying lands and Saruman fell in spectacular darkness, Radagast's fate is wrapped in a silence so complete it seems almost deliberate. Could this silence be hiding something more sinister than mere neglect? What if his disappearance wasn't just a quiet ending, but the beginning of something far more disturbing? What follows is an examination of evidence that might reveal one of the most unsettling secrets in Tolkien's work, a truth that challenges everything we thought we knew about the Istari and their role in Middle-earth. And like all great mysteries, this one begins with a simple question. What happens to a servant of the Valar when they choose to abandon their sacred duty? In the year 1000 of the Third Age, when the shadow in the east was but a whisper and the kingdoms of men and elves still flourished across Middle-earth, the Valar made a fateful decision. From their distant realm of Valinor, they dispatched 5 Maya spirits to the mortal lands, beings of immense power cloaked in the bodies of old men. These were the Istari, or wizards, each chosen with exacting purpose to guide the free peoples against the growing darkness. Curumo, later known as Saruman the White, arrived first as their leader. Olorin, who would become Gandalf the Grey, followed reluctantly but with determination. The Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palando, came together with mysterious purpose. And then there was Iwendil, Radagast the Brown, whose arrival marked the beginning of one of Middle-earth's most perplexing riddles. But at that, Varda looked up and said, "Not as the third." And Curumo remembered it. The note ends with the statement that Curumo Saruman took Iwendil, Radagast, because Yavanna begged him, and that Alatar took Palando as a friend. This single passage reveals a crucial detail that, unlike his fellow Istari, Radagast came to Middle-earth almost as an afterthought. It was not Manwë, Lord of the Valar, who chose him directly, but Yavanna, the goddess of all growing things, who pleaded for his inclusion. This distinction would shape his entire journey through the long centuries of the Third Age, setting him on a path markedly different from his fellow wizards. By the year 1050 of the Third Age, the first whispers of a growing shadow fell upon Greenwood the Great, as Sauron, though still in hiding, began to extend his influence from Dol Guldur. Over the following centuries, the once vibrant forest was slowly corrupted, earning the name Mirkwood. It was during this time that the 5 wizards established their distinct approaches to their shared mission, each responding differently to the darkening world around them. Saruman the White devoted himself to study and diplomacy, cultivating influence among the powerful. Eventually establishing his power base in Isengard by the year 2759 of the Third Age, he positioned himself as a lord among men. Meanwhile, Gandalf the Grey remained ever restless, wandering tirelessly between the realms of the free peoples, from the humble Shire to mighty Gondor, from ancient Rivendell to the plains of Rohan, weaving alliances and offering counsel wherever he walked. Radagast the Brown, however, walked a different path entirely. While his brethren became entangled in the affairs of kings and councils, he turned away from politics and power, devoting himself instead to the wilds. At some point, likely in the mid-Third Age, he made his home at Rosgobel on the western eaves of Mirkwood, where he became increasingly reclusive, turning his attention instead to the wild creatures that dwelled beyond civilization's reach. Despite this growing seclusion, Radagast's abilities were not lesser than those of his fellow wizards, merely directed toward different pursuits. Unlike Gandalf, who influenced the fates of kings and nations, or Saruman, who sought power and knowledge, Radagast's mastery lay in the natural world. By the early Third Age, he had cultivated gifts that even the wisest of elves might have envied. He spoke the tongues of birds and beasts, understood their ancient ways, and possessed deep knowledge of herbs, roots, and the healing properties of the earth. The forests responded to his presence, and many whispered that the very rivers cleared their waters at his touch. Yet as the centuries wore on, Radagast's isolation grew more profound. During the watchful peace from the year 2063 to the year 2460 of the Third Age, when Sauron temporarily withdrew from Dol Guldur, the Brown Wizard delved deeper into his studies of nature. While Gandalf used this respite to strengthen alliances and the White Council remained vigilant, Radagast retreated further into his own realm of birds and beasts. Indeed, by the year 2463 of the Third Age, when the White Council was formally established, his absence from its ranks spoke volumes about his changing priorities. His connections to the elves of Thranduil's realm remained cordial but distant. His dealings with men grew increasingly rare, limited to woodsmen and hunters, rather than kings and stewards. By the time the long winter struck on the year 2758, bringing devastation to many lands, Radagast was already fading into legend, known more as a mystic of the woodlands rather than an active guardian against Sauron's designs. The pattern persisted through the great events that shaped Middle-earth. During the dwarves' exile from Erebor after the year 2770, when Dragonfire reshaped the politics of the North, Radagast maintained his silent watch from Rhosgobel. While kingdoms fell and alliances shattered, he remained oddly detached, more concerned with the flight patterns of thrushes than the fall of kingdoms. As time passed, he drifted further from the White Council, becoming more of a mystery even to his fellow wizards. In the year 2851 of the Third Age, when the White Council convened to debate the looming threat of Dol Guldur, Radagast was notably absent. While Gandalf urged an attack on the fortress and Saruman counseled patience for his own hidden reasons, the Brown Wizard's voice was missing entirely from these crucial deliberations. His isolation was no longer merely physical, but had become a defining aspect of his role in Middle-earth. While he might occasionally aid a traveler lost in the wilds or share his vast knowledge with those who sought him out, he showed little interest in the grand strategies against Sauron that dominated the thoughts of his fellow Istari. It is said indeed that Radagast became enamored of the many beasts and birds that dwelt in Middle-earth and forsook elves and men, and spent his days among the wild creatures. This single statement from Tolkien's writings reveals a crucial truth about the Brown Wizard. Radagast's attention shifted not gradually, but decisively away from those he was meant to guide. What began as affinity transformed into obsession, pulling him ever deeper into the mysterious heart of the wild and further from the struggles of elves and men. His home at Rhosgobel became not merely a dwelling, but a boundary, a line drawn between himself and the wider world that he crossed less and less frequently as the centuries passed. As the Third Age drew to its tumultuous close, the seemingly insignificant choices of earlier centuries revealed their true weight. In the summer of 3018, as darkness gathered and the Free Peoples stood on the precipice of their greatest trial, Radagast the Brown was drawn back into the affairs of Middle-earth through a series of events that would inadvertently shape the fate of all. On a warm day in early July of that fateful year, Radagast emerged from his seclusion at Rhosgobel, compelled by an urgent message from Saruman the White. Journeying swiftly with the aid of his animal companions, he sought out Gandalf, finding him by chance on the borders of the Shire. There, beneath the summer sun, the brown wizard delivered words that would set in motion one of the war's most pivotal moments. "Saruman the White," answered Radagast, "and he told me to say that if you feel the need, he will help, but you must seek his aid at once, or it will be too late." This seemingly benign message, delivered with all the earnestness of Radagast's nature, was in truth the bait for a carefully laid trap. For Saruman had already betrayed his order, bending his knee to Sauron in hope of power. When Gandalf heeded this summons and travelled to Isengard, he found not aid but imprisonment atop the Tower of Orthanc. Was it naivete or willful ignorance that led Radagast to become an unwitting pawn in Saruman's scheme? Then again, perhaps this moment reveals the true cost of the Brown Wizard's long isolation, a blindness to the political machinations that had consumed his former ally. Yet even in this moment of unwitting betrayal, Radagast's character shone through. At Gandalf's urgent request before departing, he sent word to the Great Eagles to watch the lands along the Anduin, setting in motion the chain of events that would lead to Gandalf's eventual rescue by Gwaihir the Windlord. In this single act, perhaps his last significant contribution to the War of the Ring, the Brown Wizard demonstrated that despite his long estrangement from the affairs of Middle-earth, some ember of his original purpose remained within. After this brief emergence, Radagast vanished once more into the shadows of history. While the great battles of the war raged across Middle-earth, at Helm's Deep, on the Pelennor fields, and before the Black Gate itself, no chronicle spoke of the Brown Wizard's whereabouts or deeds. This conspicuous absence stands in stark contrast to the fates of his fellow Istari. Gandalf fell into shadow in Moria only to return, transformed, as Gandalf the White, the instrumental force behind Sauron's ultimate defeat. Saruman's betrayal was laid bare for all to see, his armies destroyed, his fortress broken, his power ultimately stripped away. Yet of Radagast, history records nothing during these climactic months when the fate of all Middle-earth hung in the balance. Was he hiding, protecting what he could of his woodland domain from the encroaching darkness? Was he working subtly through his animal messengers, providing intelligence too secret to be recorded? Or had he simply withdrawn completely, having decided that the affairs of elves and men no longer concerned him? The silence surrounding his actions during the war's greatest moments is part of what makes Radagast's story so intriguing to scholars of Middle-earth's history. His absence from these crucial events only deepens the mystery of what truly became of the Brown Wizard. By the year's end of 3019 in the Third Age, when the One Ring was destroyed and Sauron's power broken forever, a curious silence fell over the tale of the Brown Wizard. The histories of Middle-earth meticulously recorded Gandalf's departure for the Grey Havens with the Ring-bearers on the year 3021 and Saruman's demise in the Shire. Yet Radagast's absence from these accounts opens the door to several possibilities regarding his fate. The most benign interpretation suggests that Radagast simply retreated further into the wild places of Middle-earth, becoming a deliberate hermit. With Sauron's defeat and the cleanup of his stronghold at Dol Guldur by the forces of Lothlorien in the spring of 3019, the immediate threat to Mirkwood, soon renamed Erin Las Galen, the Wood of Green Leaves, had passed. Perhaps Radagast, never comfortable with the politics of the wise, chose to deepen his communion with nature in these newly peaceful woodlands. After all, the Fourth Age would see the dominion of men rise and the magic of the world diminish. The forests would need a protector now more than ever. A more complex theory emerges from a careful reading of Tolkien's unfinished tales, which states that, indeed, of all the Istari, only one returned into the west, and that was Gandalf. This single line suggests that Radagast, unlike Gandalf, was not permitted to sail to Valinor with the last of the elves. The Valar, it seems, judged only one of their emissaries to have fulfilled his purpose. Some scholars of Middle-earth lore suggest a third possibility, that Radagast underwent a transformation beyond the understanding of elves or men. The precedent for such a metamorphosis exists in the form of Tom Bombadil, another enigmatic figure whose nature and origin remained mysterious even to the wise. As the magic of the Elder Days faded from Middle-earth with the departure of the elves and the rise of men, beings of power faced a choice: depart, diminish, or change. If Radagast chose the last path, his profound connection to nature might have become something more literal, his consciousness merging with the forests and wild places he had stewarded for so long. Though Tolkien's texts provide no canonical evidence of Radagast's activities or influence in the Fourth Age, this hasn't stopped speculation about what might have become of the Brown Wizard. Some tales whispered of birds still flocking in curious patterns over the ruins of Rosgobel, as if echoing the presence of a master long vanished. Others might have imagined that Radagast's essence somehow lingered in the deep glades of Erin Lasgalen, where certain ancient groves remained mysteriously untouched by the axes that increasingly bit into the forests of the dominion of men. The absence of Radagast from the chronicles of Middle-earth's transition into the Fourth Age carries deep meaning within Tolkien's mythology. His silence mirrors the greater themes of transformation and loss that marked the end of the Third Age. When the last ship departed the Grey Havens in the year 3021, it marked not just the departure of the Ring-bearers, but the beginning of a new era where the direct influence of the Valar would fade from Middle-earth. Radagast's story represents a unique intersection of duty and devotion, where other servants of the Valar either fulfilled their purpose or actively rebelled against it. Radagast followed a path that defied such clear categorization. His dedication to the natural world, while true to his connection with Yavanna, led him away from the Valar's intended purpose for the Istari. Yet, unlike Saruman, whose deviation was marked by ambition and desire for control, Radagast's divergence stemmed from love, perhaps too singular a love, for the very world he was sent to protect. This ambiguity raises profound questions about the nature of divine purpose in Tolkien's universe. Can one remain true to their essential nature while straying from their assigned role? The judgment passed on Gandalf and Saruman was clear, but Radagast's fate seems suspended between reward and punishment, acknowledgement and abandonment. A silence that speaks volumes about the complexity of duty and the price of choosing one's own path. The Brown Wizard's disappearance also symbolizes the changing relationship between civilization and wilderness in Middle-earth. As the realms of men expanded in the Fourth Age, the wild places of the world grew fewer and more remote. The dominion of nature retreated before the advance of human industry and settlement, just as magic itself withdrew from the world. In the twilight of the Third Age, when the final battles of the War of the Ring faded into memory, a more unsettling interpretation of Radagast's disappearance emerged. Unlike Saruman, whose path led to ambition and a desire for domination, Radagast's journey took him in a different direction. His retreat from the world of men and elves marked not a fall into darkness, but rather a gradual shift in priorities, a growing distance from the original mission that brought him to Middle-earth. When the Valar sent the Istari to Middle-earth in the year 1000 of the Third Age, they granted these emissaries both tremendous power and the freedom to choose their path. This liberty carried with it profound consequences, reflected in the divergent journeys of the wizards. Gandalf chose engagement with the free peoples, Saruman pursued domination, and Radagast embraced an ever-deepening bond with the natural world. Each decision ultimately determined their fate at the age's conclusion. For Radagast, that choice led to a peculiar form of diminishment. By the Council of Elrond in October of the year 3018, he had become so focused on nature that Gandalf could only say of him, "He is a worthy wizard, a master of shapes and changes of hue, and he has much lore of herbs and beasts, and birds are especially his friends." This characterization reveals how thoroughly Radagast's priorities had shifted. His knowledge of the natural world had become his defining attribute, rather than any role in the struggle against Sauron. While Gandalf remained present for the decisive moments of the age and was ultimately rewarded with return to Valinor, Radagast's absence from these events left his ultimate fate uncertain.